All right, here's the review from book 1 that you guys asked me for. I'm going over all the topics you guys wanted me to go over from book 1. So the first one is chapter 1.5, the square roots and cube roots. So square roots are asking what two numbers multiply together to make this number inside the square root. So what number times itself makes 25? 5 times 5 is correct. 5 is one of those solutions. But also, if you do negative 5 times negative 5, a negative times a negative will make a positive 25. So that's another option. So the two possible answers for the square root of 25 is positive or negative 5. Okay? And for this one, the cube root, how do I know we're talking about cube root? It has 3 here. So they're looking for 3 numbers that when you multiply together, they make 343. And this one is 7 times 7 times 7. Now for this one, it's actually just positive 7. Okay? That's the answer for this one. Now if it was, I wanted the cube root of negative 343, then the answer would have been just negative 7. Because a negative times a negative is a positive, and then a positive times a negative will make this negative number. Okay? Negative times a negative will make this positive, and a positive times a positive will make this positive. That's why when you have squares, when you have square roots, there's 2 possible answers. Cube roots, there's only 1. If what's in here is positive, then it is positive. If what's in here is negative, then it is negative. Okay? So for this one here, they're asking for something squared equals 50. Well, how do you get rid of the squared sign? You do the opposite, which is square root. So if I square root this side, I have to square root that side. So the answer for this one is x, because now they've canceled each other, equals the square root of 50. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, what times itself makes 50? This is an irrational number, so there is no solution to that. So we're just going to be leaving it in this form. But because it's squared, you don't know if this is a positive or a negative answer. So you have to leave it in that form. Positive or negative square root of 50. Okay? For this last one here, same thing. What's the opposite of cubing something? Cube rooting it. Those two will cancel. You're left with x all by itself, but whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. So you have to cube root that side. So now this one, the answer is the cube root of 37. Because there's no actual answer for this. It's an irrational number again. We're just going to leave it in that form. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Now, chapter 2.1 was another one. Here you have to combine like terms. Anything that has the exact same variable can be combined. If this would have said x squared, I would not have been able to add it with this one. It would just be that's it. That's the simplification. But because they have the same variable, I can put them together. So for this one, I have to add up these fractions. I cannot add up the fractions until they have the same denominator. So before I do anything, I'm going to turn both of them into fractions. So 1, this was already a fraction. This one is not. This was a mixed number. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Now I know 4 is the new numerator. Now I still have to change this fraction because you can't add fractions unless the denominator is the same. So I'm going to multiply this by 2. And which means I'm also going to multiply the top by 2. What is that going to make? That's going to make 8 over 6x plus 1 over 6x equals 36. They have the same denominator. Now the numerators can add. So 8 plus 1 is 9. 6 stays the same, equals 3 over 6. Now, to leave an x by itself, you have to multiply by its, you have to do the opposite of what is happening to it. So if it's multiplying by 9 over 6, I am now going to divide it by 9 over 6. Okay? So if I divide this by 9 over 6, it will cancel. Well, 9 over 6. If I divide it by 9 over 6, it's going to cancel. And now I have to divide this side by 9 over 6. So x equals 36 divided by 9 over 6. So we're going to make this into a fraction. Now we're going to do keep, change, flip, because that's how you divide fractions. So 36 over 1, keep, change it into multiplication, flip it, 6 over 9, equals 36 times 6 is 180 plus 36, so it's 216, divided by 1 over 9, 1 times 9, which is 9, okay? That's going to give us 24 is our answer here. So, x equals 24. I don't know why I'm writing 25, 24. And we're done. So first thing I did was make sure I could combine like terms, and then I did combine like terms. And then after that, you're left with just a number next to x equals 36. How do you leave x by itself? You always do the opposite of whatever is happening to the x. Now, before I divided, x was multiplying with 9 over 6. So what did I do? I divided. And dividing fractions should be something old, but that was a good refresher. Here, you have p minus 0.35, p equals 130. Now you're thinking, okay, what happens here? I'm going to get a negative number. No, because there's actually an imaginary 1 next to this p. So this is actually 1 minus 0.35. So I'll remind you, that is 1 minus 0.35. When you subtract, you align decimals. So 0 minus 5 can't be done. 0 minus 3 cannot be done, so I have to borrow from here. So this becomes nothing, and this becomes a 10, then a 9, then a 10. So 10 minus 5 is 5. 9 minus 3 is 6. So the answer is 0.65. So if I combine these like terms, this minus this, I will get 0.65 p equals 130. Okay? Now, well, I gotta do that one on the bottom after. I need some space. Okay, now I'm gonna be doing the opposite of what is happening to the p. So the p is multiplying with a 0.65. So I'm going to divide by 0.65. Divide by 0.65. Here's another reminder of how to divide. So this is 130 divided by 0.65. Now, there's the decimal point for 130. Here's the decimal point for 65. You can't divide by decimal points. So what we're going to do is move this twice, and now I have zeros there. Now that you're done, you cannot stop working on this problem until it has gotten here. Okay? So 65 into 1 is nothing. 65 into 13, nothing. 65 into 130 is 2. And that's 130. It subtracts, you get 0. Drop down this 0. How many 65s go into 0, 0? 0. Then drop another 0. How many 65s go into 0, 0? 0. And now the bottom is still 0. So the answer is 200. P equals 200. The last one over here. Let's see if I can put it on the screen. Okay. So it's on the screen. So now we're going to combine like terms. Negative 3.5y with minus 6.2y. You can combine them because they both have the variable y. Again, if this is y squared or x or z, it would not be able to combine like terms. But in this scenario, you are. So negative 3.5 minus 6.2, that's going to give me negative 9.7y equals negative 87.3. So now we are going to do the opposite of what is happening to the y, which is instead of multiplying by 9.7, we're going to divide by negative 9.7. This will cancel. This will be negative 9.7 dividing. Now we have 87.3 negative. These are both going to become positive, so I don't even have to deal with the negative sign anymore. Divided by 9.7. I'm going to move this decimal point, and now I have 97 divided by 873. So how many 97s go into 8? None. How many 97s go into 87? 0. How many 97s go into 873? I'm going to try to go with 9. 9 times 7 is 63. 9 times 9 is 81 plus 6. That's 87. I subtract. I get 0. The answer for y is 9. All right, I'm trying to go as slow as possible, but I am also making up a lot of videos about a lot of stuff. So, for these questions, okay, you have to be able to combine like terms. On this side you are looking at, you can't combine like terms. That's an x, that doesn't have an x. This has an x and that doesn't have an x. So what you have to do is put them together. Okay? So what I'm going to do is leave the 4x on this side, and I'm going to move this x over here. Now, because I have to move this to the other side, it has to change signs. So instead of positive 2.5, it becomes a minus 2.5x. Now I'm going to drop the 12 here, but instead of a plus 12, this is going to become a negative 6. Now that everything's on the correct side, I can combine like terms. So 4 minus 2.5 leaves you with 1.5x. And negative 6 plus 12 leaves me with 6. What's the opposite of multiplying by 1.5? I'm going to divide by 1.5. This cancels. Divide by 1.5. X equals 4. All right. The next question here is this one. So here, again, same thing. I have to make the scenario so that I can combine like terms. These cannot. This has an x, this does not. This has an x, and this one does not. So, same scenario. I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to move this over. It becomes a minus 0.03x. Is it always turning into minus? No, because sometimes it's a minus, and you have to turn it into a plus. But for this scenario, it is happening like that. Plus 1,250. Now I'm going to move this, and it's going to become a negative 925. This is going to become 0.02x equals, this is going to be 325. Now I'm going to divide by 0.02. Divide by 0.02, not 0.00. 0.02. So this will be the same thing as, I'm going to move this decimal point twice, move this decimal point twice, and now it's 32500 divided by 2. So that's 1, 2, subtract. That's going to leave me with 1, drop down the 2. That's going to leave me with a 6. That's a 12. That's going to be a 0. Drop down the 5. That's going to be a 2. That's going to be a 4. Bring down the 0. That's going to be a 5. That's going to be a 10. Bring down the 0 again. And now I'm going to be a 0 here. So the answer for this one is x equals 1,250. Last one. Over here. I have to move this all the way up again. So last one is this one. Okay, here's the line. Minus 2x stays here. And then I'm going to move everything else over there. So now I've got to move the plus 15x. Now it's going to become a negative 15x. And the plus 20 is also going to become minus 20x. So now I have all the x's on this side. Now I have to move all the numbers over here. So this is 10, and this is going to become minus 550. And now I have all my things. Okay, this is going to become negative 540. This one's going to become negative 35, negative 45, negative 55, negative 60. Negative 60x divided by negative 60 because they're multiplying. I'm going to cancel out. Now I'm left with x by itself. Divide by negative 60. Negative divided by negative makes a positive. Then 54 divided by 6 is 9. So x equals 9. There we go. Next one here is 2-3. Here is the same thing, other than they have one extra step prior to you actually doing what we did. So here, it's the distributive property. I'm distributing the plus 2, the positive 2. So positive 2 times x. So this, nothing's happening on this side. This side looks proper, like we did in the last one. So x drops down. This is going to be plus 2x, and that's going to be positive 14. Now, we can do the line. 4x comes down. I move the x minus x, and this one becomes minus 2x. And then the 14 comes down, and the minus 3 ends up over here. So this is going to be 4 minus 1 minus 2, which leaves me with 1x, which is written like this. That's 1x. And then negative 3 plus 14, that leaves me with 11. And you're done. This next one here is, again, distributive property before you begin. This is going to be negative 5x. Negative times a negative makes a positive. Positive 10 equals negative 25. Again, there's nothing to combine here, so the 10 is going to move to the other side. And now we're left with negative 5x, a minus 25, and then a minus 10. Now we're left with negative 5x equals negative 35. Divide by the negative 5, cancel. Divide by the negative 5, x equals 7. All right. Next one. Here we have distributive property on both sides before we're ready to go. So this is going to distribute here, and this is going to distribute here. This is going to leave me with 1/4 x plus 3/4 equals 1/2 x plus 1. Now, here we can I'm going to multiply the entire thing by the common denominator. That will remove all the fractions so that I can work just like the above problems. So 4 has a common number with 2, so I'm going to multiply everything with 4. If I multiply everything by 4, this is going to make 1x, this is going to make 3, this is going to make 2x, and that's going to make 4. Now it looks just like the previous problems. This is going to be x minus 2x equals 4 minus 3. So this is going to make negative x, negative 1x, but we write it like that, and that's going to make 1. So divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, x equals negative 1. And that's it for that one. Hopefully I'm still on the screen. Hopefully I'm still on the screen. If I'm not, I think it was just one line. I wasn't, but I put it back on there. So let's work on this now. Let's move that a little bit. All right. Now let's work on this. So this is 2, 5, 2, 6. We're finding the slope. Your first thing is to find 2 points. You look here and here until you can 100% say what the numbers are. Okay? A lot of people have an issue finding a dot on a graph line. You don't get to pick this dot or that one. It has to be a dot on this line that you know what the x is and you know what the y is. Luckily in this one, they gave them to me. Now the formula is y minus y divided by x minus x, okay? Now there's usually, when you see this formula, a 2 here and a 1 here, a 2 here and a 1 here. The only thing they want you to do is make sure that you have 2 different y's, okay? And you start with one of them, and you start with the same one that relates to that y, but x on the bottom, okay? So we've got 2 points here. We have 2 y's. So let's start with the top. So 90 minus 60. So 90 minus 60 is going to be on the top. Those are y's. The second numbers are the y's. Then we're going to go to the x's. 6 minus 4. 6 minus 4. So the answer to that problem is going to be 90 minus is 30, and that's going to be 2. So the slope is 30 divided by 2, which is 15. The next one is this one here. Find the slope of this. Now, you don't even have to search for them. They gave you the x's, and they gave you the y's. So you have to do is pick 2 y's. It does not matter which ones. I'll choose these 2 and subtract them. So 15 minus 30 divided by, and then you choose the x's that correspond with them. So 15 has to be on top of the 120, and the 240 has to be on bottom of the 30. So 240. And then there's the formula. 15 minus 30 gives me, that's going to give me negative 15. And 120 minus 240 is going to be negative 120. That's going to be a positive. And these are y, these are x, y is on the top. Oh, yeah, perfect. So the answer for this one is going to be, these are both divisible by 15. So if I divide them both by 15, the slope is going to be 1 over 30 is 2, 60 is 4, 90 is 6, 120 is 8. So 8. There it is. The slope is 1/8. Now these are much easier, but for some reason people have a huge issue with it. Now, the slope when given in an equation, if it says y equals, y is left all by itself, Okay, this is very important. If this is happening, the slope is whatever number is next to the x. So the slope for this one is 2. Okay? The slope for this one, again, look, there's a y all by itself, which means whatever number, no matter what it looks like, next to the x is the slope. So this is a positive 1/3. So the answer is 1/3 is the slope. Now we're doing 2-8. What is the y-intercept? The y-intercept is exactly what it says. When does this line intercept with this y line? So for this answer, it's right here in 4. For this one, if you're looking at it, when does this line hit this line? The answer is 6. Okay, yep, that's that one. And then 3-1, is this a function? Now, the rule for a function is very easy, okay? Every x has exactly one solution. So if I put 7 in a function and the answer is 3, that's it. The answer for 7 is 3. Now, if you tell me 7 is also 4, okay, that is a no. That is not a function. Okay, so what's allowed? You're not allowed to have 2 different answers for the same input. For every one input, there's exactly one output. You can't put 7 in and get 3, but sometimes when you put 7 in, you get 4. Okay, so the answer to 8 is this. The answer to 9 is this. The answer to 10 is this. The answer to 12 is this. The answer to 14 is this. That's a function. Now look at this next one. The answer to 9 is 54. The answer to 10 is 54. That's still okay. That's totally allowed. What you're not allowed to tell me is that the answer for 9 is also 61. That's a no. That means that this is not a function. Okay? And that's how you determine if something is a function or not. When it's on a graph, it's very simple to notice as well, because you'll see x's repeat themselves, because there'll be lines or dots will be on top of each other. So if you see something like this, that is not a function. But even if it looks weird, but it looks like this, that's also not a function because of this area right here. But even if it looks squiggly like this, that's a function, yes. That is still a function because there's no dots that are exactly on top of each other. Okay, so here you're looking at the x's going, okay. Because if I write 8 and 8.56, this is still yes to a function. Why? Because the answer to 8 is 8.56. The answer to 8 is 8.56. But if I say the answer is 8, and if the answer for 8 is also 7, then no, not a function. I think that's the last one you guys asked me to go over. I hope it helps.